It is an unusually clear morning. Sunlight floods even the ant kingdom. The tax collector ant arrived early in the morning. He had come to collect leaves. Leaves are the currency of the ant kingdom. Every first Monday of the month, he shows up without fail, sack in hand. The collector is a government official who goes door to door collecting taxes. He is only doing his job, yet everyone despises him. These days, everyone has complaints about taxes. Life is always a struggle, yet once a month, there is no escaping the tax. Starting at the entrance of the plaza, the collector makes his rounds, shop by shop, home by home. He holds out his sack, stops, and extends his hand. Not a single ant refused. Everyone knew there was no refusing. My turn came. I pulled 2 leaves from the bundle I had stored away in my safe. I had worked 3 days to earn them. The collector took them without a glance and moved on to the next home. The sack was already heavy. I was not the only one paying. Every ant in the plaza had gone through the same thing this morning. I put the remaining leaves back into my safe. It stung. 3 days' worth, gone just like that. Only after watching the collectors disappear toward the palace did I finally get up. I had no idea what happened to the leaves I paid as taxes. They were just something you had to pay, just something that got taken away. But today was different. Today, my eyes lingered on the back of that sack as it disappeared. I wanted to know where those leaves were actually going, whether any of it ever came back to us worker ants as something useful. I was simply curious. The walk home after paying taxes always felt the same, my pockets lighter, my steps heavier. I went back out to work. There was no stopping anyway. Paying taxes did not mean less work for the day. And tomorrow's food was not going to appear on its own. For a worker ant like me, the day only ended once you had filled your own share. The market beside the plaza was still busy, but no one's face showed ease. An ant trying to buy bread stood in front of the bakery and hesitated for a long while. Leaves seemed to be running short. In front of the sugar shop, an ant paced for a long time, reluctant to part with 2 leaves, then simply turned and walked away. Getting by was always a tight squeeze. Not a single ant looked comfortable. Working more did not mean living easier. By evening, half of whatever you earned that day was already gone. But a portion always had to be set aside for the next collection day. My home was in rough shape too. Yesterday morning, my daughter asked for 2 sunflower seeds. Her teacher had told every student to bring some. As luck would have it, I only had 1 left. An embarrassing fix. I rushed over to the baker ant next door to borrow one. But the baker had spent everything on materials and had none left either. I barely managed to borrow one from my friend the laundry ant and got my daughter off to school. Raising even 1 child is no easy thing. The state of my home was just as bad. The floor had started cracking long ago, and cold drafts of dirt seeped through the gaps in the walls. I thought about calling in a repair ant, but gave up on the idea. Fixing the wall today might mean not having enough sugar to eat tomorrow. Lamp oil had to be rationed, and the acorns in storage could not be touched carelessly. Let your guard down even slightly, and the bottom showed itself fast. That was just how life was. You tried not to fall short, but it had never once felt like enough. Sometimes a thought crept in. We scrape and scramble this hard, so why does it always feel like too little? The ants in the plaza, the ants at the market, everyone was saying the same thing. Ordinary worker ants like me all seemed to be in the same boat. Everyone pays taxes. Everyone works hard. So why does our life never seem to move forward? I still had no idea where the taxes were going, but one thing was clear. At least my days, my home, my dinner table, none of it got any better after paying those taxes. A few days later, a heavy downpour hit. At first it was just a damp drizzle, but by afternoon, rainwater was hammering the tunnel entrances. Homes in the lower areas were the first to flood. Dirt walls collapsed, and several passageways were blocked in an instant. Sounds like screaming rose up from below the plaza. It was the school tunnel where the young ants were. Chaos broke out in every direction. Worker ants clutched their belongings and scrambled about in confusion. Tom from next door broke his hand digging out mud. Jenny from downstairs stood in front of the collapsed path, stomping helplessly. Then, from deep within the tunnels, a line of torches appeared. It was the rescue ants, dressed in waterproof armor. Behind them, repair ants carrying shovels moved into the tunnels. Carrier ants with baskets for the soaked eggs poured in, all at once. They did not hesitate. Without waiting for anyone to go first, they dug out the collapsed passageways. They redirected the flow of water and pulled the trapped young ants out one by one. They recovered as much of the washed-away food supply as they could. The commander's orders were brief and the movements were swift, as if they had been waiting for exactly this kind of day. I stood in front of the collapsed wall and watched it all in a daze. They had appeared like saviors and were resolving everything with perfect order. I felt both reassured and grateful. An old ant standing beside me in the rain looked toward the rescue team. It is said that in the past, when there was no tax system, there were no such structural worker ants. I could not respond right away. I still had no love for the palace, and the collector was still unwelcome. But at least one thing had become clear for the first time. Even if taxes feel like something taken from you in ordinary times, when crisis hits the colony, they can become the hand that saves us. Still, the question lingered. The issue was not whether taxes were right or wrong. It was whether all those taxes were truly being used for us. After the rain stopped, the kingdom grew quiet again. The collapsed tunnels had been somewhat restored, and the children from the school tunnel had returned home. I had always resented the leaf taxes I paid, but now I knew it was not quite that simple. On the day of the rain, the rescue ants had not hesitated. They dug out collapsed passages, redirected floodwater, and pulled trapped children free. That kind of movement was possible because someone had prepared for it in advance. Trained ants, stockpiled tools, assigned roles. None of that comes from nowhere. They were built from the leaves collected every single month. I had been standing in front of a collapsed wall that day. If I had been alone, there would have been nothing I could do. The same was true for my neighbors, the ant across the way, every ant in the plaza. There were things that simply could not be protected alone. Collapsing tunnels, flooded school burrows, injured neighbors. These were things that could only be stopped with strength gathered together. Taxes were that strength. After that day, I could no longer think of taxes as simply as I once had. Before, whenever the collector held out his sack, all I felt was that something was being taken from me. So it stung. It felt unfair. It made me angry. Even now, that feeling has not fully gone away. But when I think back to the day of the rain, my thinking shifts a little. Someone was already prepared, someone came running, and someone pulled us to safety with calm and order. That was not something any one ant could have done alone. Taxes are not paid so that we can live well. They are paid so that we do not fall apart together. But who that money is spent for that is something we must always watch until the very end. Thank you. See you in the next story.